For 30 years, Johnny Carson wasn't just a television host. He was America's nightcap, the last voice millions heard before drifting off to sleep.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Behind that Midwestern smile and impeccable timing lay a comedic genius who knew something modern hosts have forgotten. True comedy can't be manufactured. It erupts in unexpected moments when everything goes perfectly wrong. While today's hosts chase viral clips with carefully scripted bits, Carson created magic through genuine spontaneity.
No, if he does as well as he's done in his other shows, he will die on medical science.
The raised eyebrow after an awkward silence, the perfect ad-lib when disaster struck, the willingness to let chaos unfold without intervention. Tonight, we revisit the unscripted moments of comic brilliance that made The Tonight Show not just a talk show, but a masterclass in finding humor when the plan falls apart.
Sneezy, happy, dog, grumpy, bashful,
Dopey.
and sleepy.
Moments so perfectly timed, so genuinely human, they couldn't be created by a writer's room, only captured by a man who understood that television's greatest gift is showing us what happens when real life interrupts the script.
Part of tomahawk throwing briefly, and we had a target set up, outline of a cowboy, let go of the tomahawk and zonk right in the very embarrassing region.
The date, April 27th, 1965. The guest, actor Ed Ames from the hit show Daniel Boone. The segment began innocently enough. Ames, who played the Native American character Mingo, arrived to demonstrate his tomahawk throwing skills. The prop team wheeled out a large wooden silhouette of a cowboy. Carson stepped aside, giving Ames room to throw. Ames took careful aim, drew back, and let the tomahawk fly. It sailed through the air and landed with a solid thunk, directly between the wooden figure's legs. The placement couldn't have been more perfect had they tried for 100 takes. The audience's reaction was immediate, a gasp, then building laughter that grew into a sustained roar. The camera caught Carson's face as he processed what had just happened. The laughter continued to build, and he simply waited, letting the moment breathe. As the audience's response began to peak, Carson stepped forward, surveyed the unfortunate placement of the tomahawk, then delivered with perfect deadpan timing. "I didn't even know you were Jewish." The audience exploded. What had been loud laughter transformed into uncontrollable howling.
I didn't even know you were Jewish.
Ed Ames doubled over. Even the normally composed Carson fought to maintain his straight face. The moment wasn't scripted. The throw wasn't planned to land there. Carson's line wasn't written in advance. It was pure, spontaneous brilliance. A split-second recognition of comedic opportunity by a master at the height of his powers. The show tried to move on, but couldn't. Every time Carson approached the target to remove the tomahawk, the audience would erupt again. Finally, he left it in place, occasionally glancing back at it through the interview, each look triggering renewed laughter. NBC executives initially worried about the risque nature of both the visual and Carson's ad-lib. Instead, they received calls from viewers praising the moment as the hardest they'd laughed in years. The clip would be replayed on Carson anniversary shows for decades, becoming so iconic that even people born after Carson's retirement recognized the moment. It wasn't just funny, it was a perfect demonstration of Carson's unique gift. The ability to find exactly the right words at exactly the right moment when unplanned comedy struck. But if the tomahawk represented Carson's quickest wit, our next legendary moment revealed something even more rare. The night when television's most controlled host completely lost control of himself.
Famous sage, seer, soothsayer, and former joke writer for Ronald Reagan, Karnak the Magnificent.
Turban perched majestically on his head, cape draped over his shoulders, Johnny Carson transformed into Karnak the Magnificent, the mystic from the East, who could divine answers to questions sealed in hermetically sealed envelopes. The routine followed a precise formula. Karnak would hold the envelope to his forehead, announce the answer, then open the envelope to reveal the question. The comedy came from the unexpected connection between the two.
A linen closet.
A linen closet.
What do gay Irish guys come out of?
On this particular night in 1974, Karnak held the envelope to his forehead with typical solemnity. "Sis boom ba," he announced with mystic certainty. He tore open the envelope, removed the card, and read the question. Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes. What happened next was something Tonight Show viewers almost never witnessed. Johnny Carson, television's most composed performer, completely lost it. He started with a small chuckle that quickly evolved into uncontrollable laughter. He tried to move on to the next envelope, but couldn't compose himself. Ed McMahon's booming laugh only made it worse.
Sis boom ba.
Sis boom ba.
Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes.
Carson slumped forward onto his desk, shoulders shaking. When he finally looked up, tears were streaming down his face. The audience, witnessing this rare break in Carson's famous composure, laughed even harder. Not just at the joke, but at the spectacle of the unflappable host utterly defeated by his own comedy. "I'm sorry," he gasped, still fighting for control. "I don't know why that struck me as so funny." He picked up the next envelope, attempting to continue, but one glance at McMahon sent him spiraling into fresh peals of laughter. It took nearly 2 full minutes, an eternity in television time, for Carson to regain enough composure to continue the sketch. Even then, occasional aftershock giggles interrupted his delivery of the next few jokes. For viewers accustomed to Carson's professional polish, this breakdown revealed something endearing. Beneath the suave exterior was a man who could be ambushed by genuine laughter just like anyone else. The moment humanized television's most iconic figure, showing the real person behind the polished persona. Decades later, comedy writers still analyze why this particular joke triggered such an extreme reaction. The combination of the cheerleader chant with the absurd visual of an exploding sheep created a perfect collision of the innocent and the unexpected. But what made it legendary wasn't the joke itself. It was watching Johnny Carson, master of television composure, surrendered completely to uncontrolled laughter. While the Karnak moment showed Carson ambushed by successful comedy, some of his most memorable moments came from the exact opposite situation, when jokes didn't work at all.
There is an acute shortage of...
The Tonight Show monologue, 8 to 10 minutes of topical jokes delivered directly to the camera, opened every show for 30 years. Unlike today's heavily tested, writer room approved monologues, Carson's featured genuine risk. Jokes bombed regularly, and when they did, television magic happened. Carson didn't fear the silence after a failed joke. He weaponized it. When a punchline met with audience silence, Carson would pause, make direct eye contact with the camera, and say with perfect timing, "How many of you actually liked that joke? Let's see a show of hands." The camera would cut to an audience member reluctantly raising their hand, triggering laughter far exceeding what the original joke would have generated. Carson had transformed failure into connection, inviting viewers to laugh not at the joke, but at the shared recognition of its failure. On nights when multiple jokes faltered, Carson would launch into his soft shoe routine, a vaudeville-inspired shuffle across the stage, performed with exaggerated movements, while humming tunelessly to himself. This wordless acknowledgement of comedy disaster became so beloved that audience members would sometimes cheer when a joke bombed, knowing it might trigger the soft shoe.
Like to warn us of things. If you remember President Eisenhower, remember when he was president of the United States? He warned... That was cool. It was quite a while ago, but it was in all the papers. You must have read about it.
"These are the jokes, folks," he'd announce after a particularly egregious bomb. "They can't all be winners." When a political joke failed to land, Carson would often turn to Ed McMahon with feigned irritation. "The country's divided, Ed." This simple line acknowledged both the bomb and the political climate that caused it, turning discomfort into shared understanding.
And she's going to study high tech, so she'll always be able to get a job.
His most quoted recovery line appeared when jokes failed spectacularly. "I'm show business, folks. I'll be here till Thursday. Try the veal." This self-deprecating reference to the Borscht Belt comedy circuit simultaneously acknowledged the bomb while positioning Carson as a working comedian rather than a television star. The failed monologue jokes revealed something essential about Carson's appeal, his willingness to be vulnerable. By acknowledging his misfires instantly rather than pushing through with false confidence, he created authentic connection in an artificial medium.
You're in a good mood, we got a good show, and you make up, really. And I've said this before, I don't like to talk about audiences that were here last night.
During his final years on air, Carson's joke recovery techniques became so beloved that writers would occasionally plant deliberate bombs, jokes designed to fail, just to watch the master work his recovery magic. These planned failures were kept secret from Carson himself, ensuring his reaction remained genuine. After one spectacular bomb in 1987, Carson put down his cards, walked to the edge of the stage, and told the audience confidentially, "You know, for what they're paying me, you'd think they could hire someone to write decent jokes." The line got a standing ovation.
What is it?
Distant early morning.
Distance early warning. Well, that doesn't make up AWAC, does it?
Carson's ability to mine comedy gold from comedy disaster showcased his fundamental philosophy. Authenticity trumps perfection. He understood that audiences connected more deeply with genuine reaction than flawless performance, a lesson many of today's more tightly controlled hosts have forgotten. While Carson's handling of his own comedy failures demonstrated his solo brilliance, some of the show's most memorable moments came when he surrendered control entirely, allowing himself to become the target of comedic attack. This willingness to be the butt of the joke revealed Carson's remarkable security. As television's undisputed king, he could have maintained an untouchable persona. Instead, he allowed, even encouraged, select comedians to target him directly, creating some of the show's most memorable moments. Rickles made targeting Carson his signature move. He would arrive for scheduled appearances, greet Carson warmly, then immediately pivot to savage mockery. "You've had some bad breaks," he told Carson during one appearance, referencing his multiple divorces. "I'm married 10 years, and I got a great wife. You're a jinx. I'll roll the dice again." Carson never seemed more delighted than when being methodically dismantled by Rickles. He would lean back in his chair, cigarette in hand, laughing harder than anyone as Rickles dissected his failed marriages, his wealth, and his alleged fair-weather friendships. "Nobody really likes you, Johnny," Rickles would declare. "They just want to be on television." While Rickles specialized in direct attack, Rodney Dangerfield brought a different dynamic to his Carson appearances. His machine gun delivery of self-deprecating one-liners, "I tell ya, I get no respect. I told my doctor I broke my arm in 2 places. He told me to stop going to those places," created a different kind of comedic energy.
Detroit. Oh, great. Yeah, Detroit. That's a great place. I'll pick up some plugs and points while I'm there, too, I think. You know what I mean?
During these appearances, Carson essentially transformed from host to audience member. He would lean back in his chair, almost disappearing from the frame, giving Dangerfield complete control of the stage. Carson's reaction shots, eyes watering with laughter, occasionally pounding the desk when a joke particularly landed, became the perfect comedic counterpoint to Dangerfield's deadpan delivery. After one particularly relentless set of one-liners, Carson could barely form his next question. "Do you," he began, before dissolving into laughter again. "Do you write all these yourself?" "No, Johnny," Dangerfield replied without missing a beat. "I pay a guy to follow me around and get no respect from me." These comedian appearances revealed Carson's remarkable lack of ego regarding who generated the laughs. Unlike many hosts before and since, he showed no need to top his guests' jokes or remain the focal point. He understood that his audience didn't tune in to see him dominate conversations. They wanted to see him create an environment where comedy could flourish, regardless of its source. This generosity extended beyond established stars to comics making their television debuts. Moments when Carson's reaction could literally change lives overnight. The stage lights at NBC's Burbank studios had witnessed thousands of performances, but none quite like this. On October 23, 1981, an unknown comedian named Robin Williams made his first appearance on The Tonight Show, unleashing a hurricane of comedic energy that left Carson visibly stunned. Williams didn't simply walk onto the stage. He exploded onto it. Within seconds, he was everywhere, crouching, jumping, switching between voices, characters, and topics with such speed that both the audience and host struggled to keep up. Spotting Japanese characters in a newspaper on Carson's desk, Williams launched into an impromptu routine about strange words in the paper, transforming into a Japanese businessman before pivoting without warning to an extended bit about chihuahuas in a cup that had the audience gasping for breath. The camera caught Carson's reaction. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open, leaning forward in his chair. This wasn't the polite attention he typically gave to new comedians. This was genuine astonishment.
Hare Krishna, Hare Lama, but I don't want the book. Take the book, it's free. Take the wig off. They go, please, no, Hare Krishna, Hare Lama.
They got a hair thing, don't they? I mean, most of those evangelists are very...
When Williams finally concluded his set and joined Carson at the desk, Johnny's first words captured what everyone was thinking. "God, you're weird." The line, delivered with affectionate bewilderment, was followed by an invitation to sit, the coveted signal that Carson approved. Within seconds, Williams was reanimated, using Carson's desk props to launch into fresh, improvised routines. Rather than attempting to control this comedy cyclone, Carson simply leaned back, surrendering his show to the newcomer's manic brilliance. His willingness to be upstaged, to become an audience member on his own program, revealed his fundamental security and love of authentic comedy, regardless of its source. Just months after Williams' explosive debut, a very different comedian made his first Carson appearance. Jerry Seinfeld, whose meticulously crafted observational humor about leftover items in a drugstore represented the polar opposite of Williams's improvisational frenzy. Have you ever noticed the things they sell in drugstores that just stay there forever? Seinfeld began, launching into a precisely constructed routine about odd merchandise that seemed to exist in perpetual inventory. Where Williams had been physical, Seinfeld stood almost perfectly still. Where Williams created chaos, Seinfeld offered precision. Yet Carson's reaction was equally enthusiastic, a demonstration of his appreciation for comedic excellence regardless of style. As Seinfeld's set concluded, Carson gave him the coveted OK sign and invited him to the couch, the signal that industry insiders recognized as career-changing approval. Years later, Seinfeld would describe this moment as more significant than winning any award. Getting Johnny's approval was the comedy equivalent of being knighted. Suddenly, you weren't just a comic. You were a comic Johnny Carson thought was funny. That distinction changed everything.
I'm writing out checks, sweating it out, paying big bills. On the checks, people are golfing, skiing, having a great time. I'm not having a great time. I'd like to see bums and dead people.
These debut appearances revealed Carson's extraordinary eye for talent across vastly different comedic styles. His immediate recognition of both Williams's manic energy and Seinfeld's precise observations demonstrated not just appreciation for comedy, but an understanding of how diverse its expressions could be. While these human interactions created many of Carson's most memorable moments, some of the show's most unpredictable comedy came when non-human guests took center stage.
Getting comfortable.
Well, I can't sit here the rest. I can't sit and talk to people with an animal on my head.
And we'll be right back after this message, Carson announced, smoothly transitioning to commercial break. The moment the red light on camera 1 went dark, chaos erupted on the Tonight Show set. A young orangutan that had been sitting relatively calmly next to animal expert Joanne Embry had decided Carson's famous silver hair looked like a perfect climbing opportunity. Tiny fingers firmly grasping his carefully styled kefir. "We're back in 30 seconds, called the floor director. The crew froze. Instead of attempting to remove his new head ornament, he adjusted his position slightly to accommodate the added weight. "Just leave him," Carson instructed, as makeup people hovered nervously. "Let's see what happens." This willingness to let chaos unfold without intervention defined Carson's approach to the animal segments. While most hosts would have stopped the show, removed the animal, and reset, Carson recognized that the unplanned moment was far more entertaining than anything they had scripted. The orangutan incident was just one of many legendary animal interactions. During another episode, Embry brought an elephant that became increasingly affectionate towards Carson during the interview. As he attempted to ask questions about the animal, the elephant leaned its considerable weight against him. "As you can see," Carson managed while being slowly compressed, "elephants form very strong attachments. Perhaps too strong in this case." Carson's ability to continue functioning as a host while being smothered by a pachyderm demonstrated his extraordinary commitment to making good television, even at his own expense. Rather than calling for help, he incorporated his predicament into the segment, creating a physical comedy routine worthy of Chaplin or Keaton. Not all animal encounters were as gentle. These animal segments revealed Carson's willingness to surrender dignity for comedy, a trait that distinguished him from more image-conscious hosts. He understood that viewers would connect more with authentic moments of chaos than with tightly controlled presentations. "The animal segments worked because Johnny never pretended to be in control," explained Tonight Show producer Fred DeCordova years later. "Most TV hosts try to maintain authority at all costs. Johnny was secure enough to let the audience see him completely at the mercy of a monkey or an elephant. That vulnerability was what people connected with." This ability to find humor in his own predicaments extended beyond the animal segments to become a defining characteristic of Carson's entire approach to comedy. Late in his tenure, Carson interviewed a particularly difficult celebrity guest who had been evading questions with rehearsed promotional answers. After several minutes of this verbal dance, the guest made an especially outlandish claim about their personal life. Carson didn't speak. He didn't need to. Instead, he simply turned directly to camera 3 and fixed it with a deadpan stare, his eyebrow raised ever so slightly. He held this look for 3 full seconds, an eternity in television time. The audience erupted. They recognized this expression immediately, the Carson look. It was his silent communication directly to the viewers at home. "Are you hearing what I'm hearing?" No words were necessary. After 30 years, America knew exactly what that look meant. It created an instant connection between host and viewer, a shared recognition that they were both witnessing the same absurdity. Carson's repertoire of nonverbal comedy extended far beyond this signature look. There was the slight tie adjustment, a seemingly nervous gesture that signaled to the audience that something uncomfortable had just occurred. Like a poker tell deliberately revealed, it invited the viewers to share in his reaction without explicit commentary. When a joke or interview went slightly awry, Carson would often drum his pencil rapidly on the desk. This rhythmic tapping, accompanied by a slight smirk, acknowledged the awkwardness while simultaneously diffusing it, transforming potential embarrassment into shared amusement. After a particularly awkward guest moment, Carson might perform an exaggerated sip of water from his mug, a beat of physical comedy that allowed tension to dissipate while he formulated his next question. These silent techniques weren't just entertaining, they were masterclasses in nonverbal communication. Carson could convey complex reactions, skepticism, disbelief, amusement, confusion, with the slightest adjustment of his expression. Each tiny gesture had been refined over thousands of shows into a precise comedic tool. Johnny's face was more expressive than most comedians' entire routines, observed comedian Jerry Seinfeld. He could generate bigger laughs with an eyebrow than most comics could with their best written material. Carson's physical comedy extended beyond facial expressions to full-body reactions. When truly shocked by a guest's revelation, he might execute his famous desk slide, physically pushing his chair backward while maintaining perfect deadpan eye contact with the camera. For truly outrageous moments, he'd perform a subtle spit take. Not the exaggerated spray of vaudeville comedy, but a perfectly timed, barely perceptible reaction that somehow made the moment even funnier through its restraint. These nonverbal techniques created a level of intimacy with viewers that transcended traditional host-audience relationships. After years of watching Carson, viewers felt they could read his mind through these small gestures, creating the sensation of not watching a television performer, but of sharing reactions with a familiar friend. Johnny didn't need punchlines because he had turned his entire physical presence into a comedy instrument, noted comedian Ellen DeGeneres. He could play that instrument with the precision of a virtuoso, hitting exactly the right note for any situation. This physical vocabulary became so established that Carson could subvert it for additional comedy. Occasionally, after a genuinely shocking celebrity revelation, he would maintain complete deadpan composure, deliberately withholding his expected reaction. This absence of response became a response itself, often generating bigger laughs than his standard reactions would have. In his final years on air, Carson's physical comedy became so refined that he could generate massive laughs with the subtlest movements, a microcosm of his entire comedic philosophy that less is often more.